I've always seen spirituality as the main purpose of life. People use spirituality or self-help and transformation when they hurt, and we use it as a convenience. And that convenience gets us in a lot of trouble because we kind of are in, but we're not fully in. And so the last 4 years, I went fully in. I was like, if this is true, if love is all there is, if we can truly, find growth and happiness and joy, and we don't have to learn through gutter, show me the way. I went so far in that I completely shaved off my past. All of the entrepreneur hats, all of the hats that I had that were still bonded into this matrix that we tend to be living in. Now I can say I live in harmony, I live in peace, I live in balance and abundance, which 4 years ago, I went broke. I made millions and I lost everything. Process of this was shaving off. Do you really mean what you're about to do? If I look at it today, I view every moment as a way to process and recreate anew. Because until we stop creating from the past, projecting into future, we're gonna be in this wheelhouse and we're never gonna change.
Pavel, we're here, brother. We made it. We're on planet Earth still.
Yes.
We're about to go into a spaceship. Dude, the last time we podcasted 4 years ago in Vegas, so much has transpired. Like everything that's blown up with Noah Ayan and you and the babies and new partnership. I mean, if there was ever a quantum leap, I feel like you are an embodiment of that. It's like one of the reasons I was stoked for our podcast today is like, I respect your childlike joy and the way you can do business. And that's rare. Like in order to do that, it takes a lot of integration, a lot of inner work to show up whole and complete on the outside. So let's start here, man. Give us a quick 2-minute snapshot of what you're up to in the world now for people that are like just meeting you right now on the podcast, and share with us what's the meaning that you've been creating for yourself in the past 4 years since we podcasted in Vegas. So much has changed. So much has changed, man. So let's kick it off there. What have you been up to for the past 4 years in a couple minutes? I know we're going to go deep into Iboga and EMF and wellness and wholeness and lots of things that all of us get to learn. We get to be here today to do this. How amazing is that? Start us off like when I met you back in Vegas and we did the ice baths and the breath, like you were in a totally different place then. Share.
Yeah, well, it's so funny, right? I was in a different place, but at the same time, I was still doing the same work, but that work was not fully integrated. And so if I can say in a few words, what has the last 4 years been about? It's been transformation, it's been integration, and it's been worthiness, like truly redefining the worth for myself and what I'm claiming into this life. And, it's so funny because, I've done crazy amounts of stuff.
Dark retreats, Iboga, everything.
It's been,
deep journeys.
It started when I was a child, when I grew up with shaman from the age of 6 or 7 years old in a post-communist Czech Republic. And I didn't think of it as something that, I want to pursue just yet. But it's funny how life has these drop-ins of information and bits and pieces of time that later on make sense. Now, since then, I've always seen spirituality as the main purpose of life. I mean, people use spirituality or self-help and transformation when they hurt, and we use it as a convenience. And that convenience gets us in a lot of trouble because we kind of are in, but we're not fully in. And so the last 4 years, I went fully in. I was like, if this is true, if love is all there is, if we can truly, find growth and happiness and joy, and we don't have to learn through gutter, show me the way. And that's the type of person I am. I'm going to go all out and all in, which, by the way, Aeon means all or none. So it symbolizes also in the name. But essentially, I went so far in that I completely shaved off my past, all of my past selves, all of the entrepreneur hats, all of the hats that I had that were still bonded into this matrix that we, tend to be living in. And so now I can say I live in harmony, I live in peace, I live in balance and abundance, which, 4 years ago, I went broke. I made millions and I lost everything. And process of this was shaving off also, do you really mean this, what you're about to do? And to give you an example, when you met me, you know, I was still deep down into the EDM, and I was still doing night shows, and I was doing drugs and alcohol, and I was also getting divorced during this time. And so I fall into a deep, dark place where I didn't see the light for bits and pieces of my time, until I found my partner, Ferry, who saw the light in me. And I don't know how, because she's been through the worst with me. When we met, literally, she met a total piece of shit that was down as low as I could possibly be. And but she stuck with it. She stuck with me. She saw the potential. And honestly, you know, that's what helped me reflect into the next steps. And so it's funny how sometimes far we have to go, because there were days I was fasting 3 days in a row just because I had to have food for my kids. We were so bad that I literally had every single account below zero. And, you know, before then, I was, you know, opening Orange Theory fitness locations all over the country. I was flying private jets.
You were balling.
I was balling.
Yeah, I remember.
But I was unhappy. And you know, even though like I checkmark everything that society would do, what American dream would do, and whatever the fuck we're told to, you know, be happy. But it wasn't enough. You know, for me, it was never about the money. Even though there were times where it became about growth and ego, and you know, I became millionaire at the early 20s, which was cool, right? Awesome, from a checklist book. But then I you know, screwed it all up. I was putting investments all over the place. I, you know, scaled this company so fast and so much that, I mean, at the peak, I had almost 100 locations under my belt, and I was 26 years old. And so I opened my first Orange Theory at 22. And ever since, you know, then I kept on going and going and going. But I committed to myself that every 3 months, I'm going to do something out of my comfort zone, something ridiculous, something crazy. And so, you know, I did the samurai camp in Japan. I went with the Zen master training. I spent a month with the psychics in Brazil. I now have done 10 days in darkness with no physical food. Oh my God, that's food.
So wild.
And it just shows you how much pain I've had, you know. And again, I'm not doing this because of brag. I literally was like, show me, if this works, show me the way. And so thankfully, I was guided to meet some of the most amazing beings that are here of love. And I've also interacted with quite a few that were of the deception. And later on, we'll talk about, you know, what is true love and what is deception and what is this construct of energy that we're living in. Yeah. Because I think people need to hear this.
Yeah.
And there is a blueprint, there is a roadmap, and what is true is always true, and what is lie will go. It comes in and leaves us.
Wow, that was such a bomb drop, because I feel like when I tune into 4 years ago, very similar story for me. Like the phrase that comes to mind, if you give a 16-year-old a Ferrari, they're probably going to crash it, right? So from a spiritual maturation standpoint, it felt like when you were 26, when you're in your 20s, you were kind of handed a Ferrari. Like millions of dollars is a lot of responsibility, and money is energy. Like the business we do together, the things that I talk about that I believe are good for me, good for my family, good for all of us here on the podcast. Like in order to hold that, it takes wholeness. And wholeness isn't something you can fucking fake. Now, there is a lot of people, Pavel, that kind of fake the wholeness, especially in our world, right? Personal development, wellness. But I wonder, like, when you look back, if you were to fly 30,000 feet over your timeline and look back, what is a piece of wisdom that you now know is true that maybe 4 years ago you thought was a lie? What is one of those things?
So here's the thing that comes to me. I don't know exactly if it will answer directly your question, but
I bet you it will.
What comes to me is that throughout my life, I kept on going through these micro cycles. So what I view life as right now is that we continue getting these cycles until we re-see them anew. Or we keep on seeing them for what they are, meaning we go into it with fear, and we go into it from like, oh, this is your fault. Or, you know, on many different levels, we can blame, or we can take the responsibility, ownership, and process, right? Yeah. And so what I would see now from the back then is I've seen these cycles, I've seen these patterns, and they kept on getting shorter and shorter and shorter. as I wasn't listening more and listening, I was listening less and less. And then I got to where I was like, okay, I see this, but how do I fix this? Because I was like, then I was really upset because, the same emotional pain would come, the same health issues would come, the same business relationship would repeat. It would literally be, it can come through anything, just for the, record. It can come from, eating habits, right? It can be as little as just that, or as big as you keep on, finding the same partner that you keep on going through the same painful, process. Now, in that, if I look at it today, I view every opportunity, every moment as a way to process and recreate anew. Because until we stop creating from the past, projecting into future, we're going to be in this wheelhouse and we're never going to change. So for quantum leap, for quantum shift, we have to literally pause, focus on our body, focus on our breath, slow it down, and just truly ask, what is this teaching me? What is this coming from? What is it that I have to do to, obtain the new lessons so it doesn't keep on repeating? Because when you stop repeating these lessons, these past things that keep on coming back, there is love, there is joy. And so what I never believed in is that I can learn and obtain things without suffering. So I literally used to learn just from the gutter, bad partnership, bad plan.
Yeah.
I literally, if I didn't hurt, it wasn't, I didn't do enough job, good enough job. And that's also worthiness, right? I thought that I have to be in pain in order for me to grow, but bullshit. So now I'm learning from love. I'm learning from my personal choices. And now the cycles that I see are the incredible holographic response to what I'm projecting and what frequency am I resonating. So again, right, people talk about this. And for me, it's always like, okay, but how does it actually work? And so this was the how in that, process.
This podcast is brought to you by my friend John Lawrence and mitozen.com Scientific. This is the Zen Vertical Spray plus Zen Extra Strength with oxytocin. I love this spray. If you head over to joshtrent.com/mitozen, MITOZEN, joshtrent.com/mitozen, you will get a 10% off coupon for this spray. Now, why is this spray so important? If you're a breathwork practitioner, if you enjoy meditation, if you have trouble calming down, this is an immediate, and I snap my fingers, an immediate response to your nervous system through the vagus nerve, all the way into the sinuses, down the back of the cranium, into your enteric nervous system. This is going to make you feel well. I promise you. I've been using this spray for almost 2 years now. It's got HAPE, oxytocin. It really just takes your sympathetic nervous system and turns the volume down so you can breathe easy. I've introduced this to hundreds and hundreds of people now. They all love it. It is powerful. It is bringing you peace. Get your Zen Extra Strength with oxytocin. The coupon is automatically applied if you just go to that link, joshtrent.com/mitozen. But if for some reason the code doesn't automatically apply, just type in Wellness Force. You get 10% off your entire order. Make sure you check out the Sandman bullets and all the other things from Dr. John Lawrence. Now let's get into the podcast.
Wow, it's so funny because I've caught myself in the past, give me the 5-step guide. Give me the construct, the logical construct where I can have the things and I can have the wealth. It's actually fucking backwards. And I heard this at MITT. I just got back from a 2-week NLP training with Scott Jackson, who's one of the 5 master trainers in North America, which we've had on the show. And so we'll link that right now. The thing that I had heard that never sunk in, if you want to talk about integration, for me, when I look back and I did my training on be, do, have, it made sense to my mind. And I think it's easy for us to get caught up in that, right? Especially entrepreneurs or people that want something different than where they are now. We like to attach to maybe Tony Robbins or something outside of ourselves that can make us whole, that can make us grow, that can make us better than what we are. Yet that takes away our power. It actually disempowers us when we look for something outside of ourselves to hold on to, when really the deep, crunchy, bloody, dark retreat work is us actually doing the work and then learning from the lessons. And this is where I want to go with you. The lessons that you've had with the dark retreat and Iboga and now the QI and the technology and everything that you're up to, there's no way you could have gotten here unless 4 years ago you were in the gutter, right? I mean, there's no way. So share with us some of the lessons that you've learned, man. I mean, this is what we're all about, right? The wellness and the wisdom of Pavel. Like, what have you learned? What's one big lesson that you've learned in the past 4 years in order so that you can be where you are now and actually speak the way you're speaking? I freaking love your language. It's very I focused. It's very like empowering and ownership. Like, you can't fake that. You can try to fake it for a while, but essentially that will be removed and you'll be left with who you actually are. So walk us through the be, do, have. It's something that's real for me now. Like, I feel it. I've been doing a lot of work on myself, to just love Josh Trent, his imperfections, his extra weight, his whatever. Like, so take us through that. What's maybe one thing that's coming through for you right now around be, do, and have? How does that work into reality for you?
You know, it's so funny. And I believe we talked about Be Do Have already 4 years ago, but exactly just like you were saying, I also wasn't integrated fully in there. Like, it made sense, but I was in the world of doers. So I'll quickly explain the whole paradigm, because most people live the opposite. They have to have the right resources, have the right partner, have the right time before they take the right actions, and they never become it.
Show me the evidence and then I'll believe it.
Yes.
It's backwards.
But it's all backwards. And so here's the thing. Number one, frequency. Frequency is everything. And so when I talk about frequency, that could be your brain waves, that could be your just state of mind, state of focus, which ultimately translates with the brain waves. And actually, we'll talk about like the whole EEG later, because it actually really sinks in well. But in order for us to truly start choosing the life we want to choose, because again, this has been talked about, all over the place.
Sure.
You actually have to use something that I call the process of unhooking. So without us unhooking from this world, we don't know who we are. And so for me, this unhooking is 1 to 2 hours per day. I don't go on a phone. I don't do anything but self-time, self-talk. And this is that time that I do my morning routine. This is that time I also do manifestation and whatever I want that day to look like. But most importantly, I unhook and reassess. Where am I? Where are you? Who you are? Who you want to be? Then once a week, I take 1 full day off completely. And that's computer, that's half of the day even out of family. This is the hard one, but this is so important because you are you, and you with somebody else constantly can neutralize, polarize. You can continue using each other's biomasses, and that doesn't do any good either. So it's really important that once a day, at least once a week, at least half a day, you are just with yourself. And again, reassess, where am I? Who am I? Where am I going? Now, once a month, it's 3 to 4 days of this. And the reason why, I don't know if you've ever been on a vacation that's, let's say, a week long. And, first 3 days, agitated, like don't know what to do with yourself.
Especially
and
if you bring your kids, then you're basically taking care of your kids in a different environment.
And it's tough to just like unhook from this fast-paced world. Now, 4th day, 5th day, when you're actually supposed to, get closer to leaving the vacation, then you don't want to leave because you finally dropped in. So this is why ideally it's a 4 day per month. You have that complete, unhooking part. And then once a year, I do 10 to 14 days, which for me is the darkness. But, this can be a cabin. This can come and manifest in many different ways, or Vipassana. But this is that time where you're just also with yourself, big portion of it. And then, of course, bringing the family. And so in this process of unhooking, I start rediscovering all of these thoughts that I didn't listen to before. And so part of the journey through self-transformation, as I like to call it, is I found out a very simple, easy method. It's called the Me, We, Be. It's a model that helps us to see consciously where we are in each aspect of us, so we can actually take this awareness to another level and we can stop these cycles to keep on repeating. Now, when you think about the me, it's the individual consciousness. That is us, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body that everybody can affect and everybody will face as part of this process of the transformation. Now, let's quickly talk about it. So when we talk about the physical body, right, that could be biohacking, your sleep, supplements, health, tracking. I mean, you've talked plenty of times
or breath work, which I learned from you 4 years ago.
Yes. So it could be, plenty of resources out there on how to heal this vehicle. Now, actually, part of this journey, so for me, I had a Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue. I was sick every 2 weeks. It ended my professional cycling career in my early 20s. So it really started with health. Now, if this powerful, body as a hardware, if we can think of it as that, is not healthy, how it doesn't function as that receiver that it's supposed to be. Now, when I took charge of my physical health, then the mental health came into about. Now, when I'm talking about mind, though, this is a very tricky one. So there's the egoic mind, the survival mechanism, which there's nothing wrong with that. We need it to, run away from tiger back in the days, or, if somebody holds a gun in front of you, like run, right? Like
it also flavors the soup. It makes you you. I mean, a lot of people talk about squashing and killing the ego. That's backwards as well. We need the ego.
Yeah, and so think about it. Body's the hardware, mind is the software, right?
Yes.
Now, just like computer, right? When we want to download new software, we got to connect to the internet. For that, we connect to the internet, and that's the unhooking time. So that's when we can download new software. Now, if a certain mental patterns, if you're talking to yourself such as you're not good enough, you look fat, and I know you guys, you have these thoughts because we all have them. We're human.
Yeah.
But there is also, it's a software error. We can remove these. So just like when we hold an app and we exit out of the app, we delete the app, the same way it works with our mind. So mind is actually a very powerful tool, and it's amazing when it works for you, not against you. Now, when you start facing all of these thoughts, so I took a couple of years of just rewriting these thoughts. So anytime I had a negative thought about myself or about another, whatever it's judgment, deceit, fear, boredom, anything that comes into that class.
Yeah.
I rewrote it, wrote it down, rewrote it into what I want it to be, and I kept on repeating it until it's stored. So system store now, right? So it's like I speak to my body and to my mind as if it's my best friend, and I speak to it as if I'm guiding it as like a chat GPT thing. You guided what you want for it to do. That's what the body's supposed to do when it's mind-body connected properly. Now, here's the deal. You've got the lousy mind, but then there is also this subtle mind. That subtle mind is the one telling us, stop watching Netflix, start working out, don't drink alcohol anymore. And that mind is actually from the spirit, which I will touch on that from the spiritual body, because that communicates with us all the time. But if we don't silence enough, we don't hear it. Now, then there's these emotions. And oh boy, for men especially, emotions are weakness in our society, to feel emotional, to express emotions. We've been so suppressed. And there is a reason why we're being suppressed, because emotions is what makes this life feel real. And so, the society has taught us, right? If we're in fear, if we're in pain, we're in that limited vibrational, accord. And that accord has to be switched. So this is when I had to face my traumas, go back in time. And when it comes to emotions, it was also relationships, forgiveness, speaking to the past ones that I've hurt and done it all, heard all of them, made every negative decisions that I could. And I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. And I love you. I used to ho'oponopono because I now know how much that's been holding me back. Now, when we open up the emotional body, this is when we can actually create as well. So when we are here to manifest from our heart, it starts with images, with the mind. Now, most of the self-gurus and thought leaders for manifestation, they teach you how to create from your ego, from your limited self. And yes, you can create whatever you decide, whatever you put your attention to, absolutely. But what if it's not for your highest good? What if it's not in a triple benefit, of you, me, and the earth? And then what happens? You're manifesting from polarity. And when you manifest from polarity, you might manifest the house, but then maybe the house burns down, or you lose the income that pays for the mortgage. So there's always that polarity, that duality attached to it. Now, when you manifest from your heart, from your emotions, it actually starts with projecting images. So you visualize these images of how you want it to be. Then you attach the emotion. Then you bring the intention and attention. And most people start with intention. Do you see where it changes?
Yes, it's a new lens.
So it's actually the third part of this step. And then you so basically it's the be, do, and have, right? So you visualize it, you embrace it, you feel it, you are it. Then you take the right steps to do it. Because for the spiritual community, right, we can be in the spirit and wait all life long, but nothing's coming if we're not going to take the right steps forward.
Yeah.
And then you have the results as a natural flow of life. So emotions are key when it comes to this life, to feel the immense amount of love and joy that we're meant to feel. Now, spirit, this was the fourth level. And by the way, it's supposed to be reversed, right? Because we're spiritual beings living a physical experience.
Yeah.
But, as a process of coming from pain, it was not the route for me. But whatever you might be. So when it comes to the spirit, so when I was with the psychics, I've learned that there's 4 ways how spirit talks to us. So there's the higher aspect of us that's already realized. And then there's the smaller aspect of us, which is the mind, the ego. Now, again, what the key is integration, not sending, ego to hell, but like keep it and work with the higher mind. Now, when you tune into the higher mind, life really shifts. Now, I was probably one of you, didn't believe in it, didn't trust it, was wondering like, is this real, right? At first, there's the doubt. But then, oh my gosh. So let's go into it. So there is a psychic hearing, which is this tiny, subtle voice that constantly has our highest interest. So that little voice will never tell you to hurt someone. That little voice, let's say that somebody hurt you, will never tell you to hurt them. It will tell you to, turn the cheek on the other side, as Jesus would say.
Yeah.
Now, how do we strengthen this inner hearing, right? The way we strengthen it, we acknowledge it. So when you hear something, you say, thank you, I heard that. And now what you going to do about that? And if you don't follow that guidance, it gets weaker. If you start following that guidance, your life shifts and that voice gets as loud as the monkey brain. And that's the voice I listen to today. Now, then there's this psychic seeing. Those are visionaries, lucid dreaming. This could also be, some people can literally interpret their dreams. Some business entrepreneurs, they see an idea that hasn't been seen before. Where did that come from, right? It's coming from this higher part of us. And any inventor, any, game changer in this whole world, they did not pull it from, their intellectual mind. It all of a sudden came from somewhere else. So that's the psychic vision. And when you see it, you say, thank you, I saw that. What you gonna do about that? Now, then you've got the feeling, psychic feeling. People can be also called the empaths. And this comes from your solar plexus into both of your hands. And so you can literally connect as if you were like creating a current. And a lot of Reiki or pranic healing, they use very similar way of healing, where you essentially feel into someone or you feel into a situation, you feel into a room. And I'll give you an example. If there was a fight in a room that you just step into, something doesn't feel right. Or you had a bad feeling about that person, right? That's a psychic feeling that, again, we got to acknowledge and what we're going to do about that. And the final one is the psychic knowing. And this is the hardest one to discern because it can interchange with the monkey brain. But the knowing is when you think, you don't know. When you know, you don't think. So you knew you shouldn't have gone to the party. You knew that that person was cheating on you. You knew that that was a bad decision. It was a knowing that was in your body. It's that intuition, that deep, inner clock. And that one, again, gets stronger. Some people also verify it with muscle testing, but that is still limited because this is limitless source, right? So it's your psychic hearing, feeling, knowing, and seeing. Those 4 aspects of us communicate to be able to recreate a life anew. So you don't keep on recreating from the same place. And that's the 4th part of the me, the individual consciousness. Now, then you've got the we. So in my process of this journey, then I was like, what about others? And I already had it as a business owner. I turned all my companies into self-management. And it was a big mistake because I thought everybody wants to be self-managed and wants to make more money. And I ended up losing pretty much everything because of that decision of wanting to do good. But it was my fault because they weren't emotionally intelligent enough to, take that role. But when we look into the we, I've always been, my whole mission is about unify the world 1% at a time through these tools that we teach. And so I always looked at my neighbors and I'm like, I don't feel satisfied until they feel satisfied. And this was just like this inner calling that kept on coming to me. And so when I think about the we, the collective, that's our relationships. And that's the environment that we live in. When I say environment, that's the food we eat, the air we breathe, the frequencies, EMFs, everything that can affect the me, right? And then the relationships, the simple question is like, what are the top 5 relationships that fuel you, right? Take you forward or backwards. And if you don't have a tribe that supports you on this journey, you gotta exchange the tribe. You gotta bring a new tribe in that works for you, because we are of collective. And until we unify, we're gonna be zombies running around into this world of me, that self-interest. But we must rise to the we collective consciousness, because that's where it's at. And that's what I do at my events. Every single event, we hold hands, we go into a heart, we bring this frequency of love into every city that I go to. And for those that are ready to drink from this and nourish themselves, it's there for them. And that's why I travel so much, because I feel so called to continue, doing this. Now, me, we, and be. Be is the be to have. It's the ultimate self-expression. What it also means, it's a supra-consciousness. So micro and macro. Does that make sense? So now you can see the cycles that I was, talking about, because when you look at all of these cycles, they come from all of these different situations and modules. And the be is, if we know universe was created 13.5 billion years ago, how the hell did we get here, right? We're such a tiny little drop of nothing in everything, that yes, it affects us. Yes, we affect it, but it's so much grander. And this is when we got to open up that mind, heart, and emotions to this new mind, to this greater, aspect of us.
Dude, play that back, ladies and gents. Play that back. Listen to that entire thing. That was like a good 10, 15 minutes of just pure wisdom. I really appreciate that, because from what I know about you and what I feel about you, you've done the work to actually make the words you're saying who you are. And I think that's a huge difference, because maybe some of us have heard what you just talked about many times, but until we're ready, until I'm ready to actually hear it, maybe the 54th time, a concept of be, do, have, a concept of the we, it doesn't stick. And I wonder, how do you feel about the timing of this? Because some people that are from, the East, they may engage in dharma and karma, the credit card being the karma that we pay off from this lifetime or the last, or maybe heck, thousands of lifetimes ago, who knows? And then there's the dharma, there's our path. And when I feel you, I know you're living your dharma. Like there's no question to me about that. I wonder the timing of this, because there can be, there can be a heart that's very pure, and it can want the lessons, it can want the teachings, but it's just not the right timing. And I've found that if I force it, if I try to pretend like I'm something bigger than I am, or if I try to muscle through, that's why I got rid of the show Wellness Force. I was done forcing. I did not want to force anymore. So I replaced force with wisdom. And I feel like we can only really have wisdom when we have the experiential learning of the gutter, of the dark stuff, of the dark retreats, of the iboga, which I know we're going to talk about, which I'm excited to talk about. I wonder, before we get to that though, what was the timing of you learning these concepts? And do you feel like there was a secret ingredient? Was there a sixth sense? Was there a part of you that really got to receive these teachings over the past 4 years that, looking back in your 20s, there's no way you would have been able to hold them? Talk about that a little bit.
So first thing first, everything that is of love is simple. So number one biggest thing, so when I speak at these biohacking conferences, right, I always say, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. If I'm master at something, it is the transformation itself, and I'm not master at anything, because that keeps on revolving. Now, in that process, I was like, okay, and I'm a, diehard biohacker myself, right, in so many ways. But at the same time, I was asked one day, what is your most important biohack? And I said to unhack everything you've ever known about every hack.
Yeah, I love that.
Because if you don't unhack and listen and tune into this higher self, then you can't fully receive the clear message. And so to answer your question, it's coming from these senses, these spiritual senses that are guiding this, but it's also coming from experience, because when I look back in the last 10, 15 years, I traveled all of these places and learned from all of these people. And my whole intention was that whatever worked and has science behind it for today's mind, I added into my toolbox, and then I integrated it in myself. And this is why no matter what you see in any of our teachings, if it's not integrated within myself, I don't teach it. Now, in this process, I've learned that there's 4 pathways that we actually go through in this process of journeying through self-transformation. And so the step 1 is waking up. So wake up, and it's the awakening process that something doesn't work. And to also answer your question with the timing of it, right? This is why, my whole life I was getting these opportunities, getting these ideas, but I didn't follow it, right? The brightness of money was a little bit smelled a little bit better at that time to follow this spiritual path. And so obviously everything is at the right timing when you're ready to fully engage and receive.
Yeah.
But then I thought I was ready 7 years ago before I went to the first dark room. But then the smash of all of this that came through this opening, we have to be ready, right? If we were living a certain way for last 10, 20 years, there's going to be a repercussion we have to face and reface, right? So we can reassign to the new. Now, in this process, I've noticed that no matter if it's the physical body, mental body, relationships, you first wake up, something doesn't work. To give you a simple example, you go get your blood drawn on a physical level. You might be low in vitamin D. You might be high on environmental toxins. So you've woken up, you have a data, you have a sequence of things to work through, right? So waking up. The second phase is cleaning up. So clean up. So it's wake up, clean up. And this is that time where you get rid of the toxins. You get rid of the negative relationships, emotions, and thoughts about yourself. Because what I've noticed, to be able to recreate anew, you have to let go of the old. You can't live two lives. And that's what I was living when you met me last. I still had a little bit of the past in me, and I had that bright vision in front of me, right? But until that goes away into the middle, which is what symbolizes my Noah Aeon, it's like duality, come back into the center where there is no more polarity, then I had to let go of the old. Now, then when you let go of the old, you power up. This is when you supplement vitamin D. This is when you bring the new tribes, new people, new ideas, new visions. And then you rest up, the final one, which is the process of unhooking. And so as you can see, you can take this wake up, clean up, power up, rest up daily, weekly, monthly. It applies to any part of your life because now you can see where are you? Where do I need to reassess? And in that rest up, that's the time where you gotta take a break. You gotta unhook. Because otherwise you're not listening to your true self. You're listening to that egoic mind again that, will drive you to the grounds.
Yeah, the egoic mind doesn't want to rest. The egoic mind just wants what it fucking wants.
Yes.
It's like, I remember we had a conversation 4 years ago where you're like, I travel, I burn hard, and then I crash. I travel, I burn hard, and then I crash. And I wonder in this cleanup phase, God, dude, I think we're all raising our hands with the cleanup phase. Like sometimes the cleanup phase can last years, right? To actually unhook from these relationships. Because in my experience, I'm curious how you feel. In my experience, there's a gift in that. There's a gift in how long we spend, to use your words, in the gutter. There's a gift to be with a man or a woman that maybe isn't in our highest good. And it's very tricky because a lot of the times when we hook into our relationships, we're feeding something that's keeping us stuck, but there's also lessons that still need to be learned. And I think, Pavel, that's why the timing is such a big question for all of us. How do I know when to grit? How do I know when to quit? That's a big one. And I wonder for you, I know for myself, like when it came to my relationship with Carrie Michelle, there were many times where I was like, I don't know if this is right. And I'm sure she felt it too. And I'm sure that all of us have felt that at times, like maybe this isn't the right person for me, just this mental talk. But it wasn't until I got clear and did many cycles of this 4-step process that you're talking about, many cycles for years, that I actually got down to it is it's my responsibility to unhook. It's my responsibility to clean up, to wake up, and the other two you mentioned. I wonder for you, what was the gift that kept you hooked to your ex-wife? There had to have been something that you were learning that you absolutely needed to learn in order to unhook, take away the lesson, and bring it to the relationship you're in now with your new beautiful baby on the way. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
This is child number 3. So what was it with the hooking of the ex-wife that we can all learn from a place of love that you can share that really made a difference so you can show up how you show up now? What was that? What was the hook?
So when you're facing these decisions and questions, the number one question I always ask is, what would love do now? It's so simple, but love will always tell you. So questioning everything is a process of never-ending surrender in a lot of ways, because these questions will give you more answers. And more you can attune to these senses, then clearer the answers. Now, let's say that you're not there yet, right? And this might be quite far. I've actually learned that there is about 7 stages to love, to relationships, or to engagements.
What was the book you were telling me about to read? Remember, you told me this.
Future of Love.
The Future of Love.
Yes.
Okay, I get to do that still.
Yes.
I never did it. Continue.
So it's a basically book about soulful love, and nobody knows about this book, and it's really changed the way I look at love, and I'm gonna bring those 7 stages from this book because I also apply it in career, in everything. So, and it will answer you like where it's enough, right? Where has been too much. So step 1 is romance, right? I don't have to explain much. Butterflies, love, excitement. What I will explain is it could be in relationship, but it could be a new yoga studio. It could be a new business idea. You're just so excited, right? Step 2 is commitment. You buy the membership, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, or you sign a new LLC, right? So commitment, you just broke it down. Third one is broken vase. What broken vase means is you start seeing things you didn't see in that first phase because you overlooked all of these things. And that could be, you act just like your mother. Where is this coming from? This yoga studio doesn't have a showers. How do I go to work after? This startup is underfunded, right? Like you start seeing things you did not see in that phase.
Because you were blinded by the catecholamines, the hormones, the bathing of the chemicals.
Yes.
We've all been there.
Now, 4th stage is something called ordeal. And I'm going to sing, should I stay or should I go?
Come on.
I think it's now starting to, lighten up some minds. And what that is, it's the up and downs. I love you, I hate you. Your fault and my fault. My fault is not irrelevant just yet.
Yeah.
It's still that me. It's still that non-responsibility for the situation, for our lives. And this process, by the way, can last. That's the longest one. It can be 25 years of an attorney or doctor that does it for security, but has this passion, this calling all life, but doesn't follow it, right? It could be relationships, right? 40-year-old marriage just because of kids. I was there for many years. I did not want to leave and break the marriage because as untraditional as I am, I'm still very foundational and traditional when it comes to children and wife and family. And at that time I didn't make the right choices to basically do that. But essentially the 5th stage is collapse. This is when you either make it or break it. Now, usually you hit collapse when you run out of energy. There's just no more energy to fight. Like you've just had so much of it that you're like, screw this, I'm done. And this is when people divorce, they change companies, they change yoga studios, whatever that might be, you're done. Now, if you're not fully done and if you want to take the responsibility and go through the next phase, it's something called surrender, the 6th stage. Surrender is where it's not about me. It's about we. We've been wrong. We've said wrong things. I get it. I understand. This is not working out. What do we do about this? And 7th stage is true love. And this is when you are navigating it as it goes. This is when you're flowing. It's not about money. It's not about this. It's about everything. It's an integrated love journey that you have with someone or something, right? It could be with anything that you're doing. And I've always honestly prayed that I can get to this phase, and I really wanted to. And I'll tell you something very interesting. So I've done so much self-work, right? Like on myself to really figure out like, how do I keep on offsetting her so bad, right? Because she was just furious with me. And she was, my former wife was the only person in my life that I truly like, I also got furious with her. I didn't know where this is coming from. Now, then I met this lady, Tatum, who does Akashic reading and Akashic work from the Akasha. And I basically went in there with, no expectations. I wanted to clear my past lives, right? And I wanted to see if maybe this work wasn't from this life, maybe it was from previous lives.
Yeah.
So then 13 lives ago, first life that she mentions, she says that I'm reincarnated with someone in this present life, aka my former wife, that I was the one getting super hurt, ironically because of karma. So back then I was the victim, now she was the victim of this situation.
Wow.
And literally clear this, right? And then I asked my former wife, Anne-Marie, would you be open in doing this work as well? And she said, yes, we were still very much in that, fight or flight.
Struggle phase. Struggle bus.
And she did it and everything cleared. I kid you not. It's incredible. And so I was like so bought into this work that I'm actually now training under this lady because it was so vast and powerful. And she also restores your soulful blueprint. She talks about how do you properly manifest. She it's like a full complex 2-hour experience.
What is her name?
Tatum. And then it's we can drop it in Akashic.
Yeah, we'll drop it in there.
That's
all right.
We'll drop it in later. But oh my gosh, I recommend her to everyone, and because she's changed my life with her, and also where I'm at today. And so to give you an example, so she does something called how many lights of manifestation do you currently have? And I was 17 out of 30. Which is like halfway through, but it's not that great, right? It means that I manifest some things, but not the others. And then within about 4 months of work with her, I've increased to 26 out of 30, but visibly in my life, like it starts shifting. And she says, when you hit 30 out of 30, your life goes exactly for you how you want it to go, because there's no more choices or that you would make out of subconsciousness, because it's all conscious life.
You're not in conflict with yourself anymore.
Correct.
Right? You're actually living in a way that's truly, quote, in flow.
In flow with what you're choosing, you're having repercussions immediately. So now, a few months ago, I asked her, what's been really interesting about my life? I don't have these long cycles anymore, because, I talked about cycles early on here.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, that's because you don't have the past karma. So you don't have to do all of this bullshit anymore. You don't have to worry about that. That's been cleared. Now you're just having, cause and effect, right? So whatever I decide to do, then whatever those repercussions, was it created out of heart or mind, right? That's the question. Mind, polarity; heart, no polarity. It's just unity. It's love. And so there was this beautiful born new method.
Wow. So I'm going to go one level deeper before we get to the extra fun stuff. And this is fun for me too, because relationships, there's no way you could be a person who's truly embodied to know yourself unless you have a mirror of a woman or a man. Like I just don't think it's possible to go through life and be celibate and single. Maybe for monks, cool for them. But for the rest of us, like, we actually need relationship to grow. So I want to go back one layer deeper. What was the hook with Anne Marie in the past? Like, what was the gift that you got from that? And how can you, with love and without judgment, look back on yourself and go, hey, you know what? The lesson for me was actually this thing that I had been carrying around. I was maybe projecting onto her, or she was projecting onto me. Like, what was the gift from all of that?
So, looking back, I was an asshole. Like, I did not treat her the way I would treat anybody. And I absolutely think that the person that I was, especially during the money phase in my life, like, I've gotten, not into a path that I am proud of at all. Now, in that process, so what I've learned, and that's something that Tatum says, that we were basically soulmates from previous lives into this life. But what soulmate means, it's actually dysfunctional relationship, because we're like the total opposites. And even though there's this deep like love from within, there's also this deep polarization without. And so what I've learned is that, now we have this beautiful relationship. We have a great co-parenting, and it's this neutralized space of being where we support each other from a different place. We love each other from a different place. But that love, if we ever stuck together, would not work, because we just were not a match. Yeah. And this is the hardest discernment, and I get it, because some people can work through this, right? They will work through it consciously.
If it's 100%, and it needs to be a 200% relationship, 100 and 100. Yeah. And it's not to shame ourselves or our partners, but unless it's a 200% relationship, it essentially will degrade. It will fall at some point. Yeah. I had to say that because there needs to be a loving commitment that we both come to the altar of humility. We both kneel together.
Yes. And honestly, David Data, I'm sure you know his work.
Of course, yes. It's the teachings for our men's group. Shout out to Johnny Blackburn. Shout out to all the people we've had on the show. His work has filtered into so much, man. John Wineland, who sat right there. Data was a huge influence. Nice. I love Data. I've never met him. I feel like he's in a cave somewhere. I don't know. But he's got the most divine wisdom when it comes to men and women, masculine and feminine.
I truly believe powerful. That too. And especially also for men, there's a book, The Way of the Superior Men. I think it's a great one.
It's on the stand-up desk here in the studio.
Yeah, to read.
It's literally right there.
But he also talks about, different relationships. And, there's like a 3 stages in his way.
Yes.
There's the one that's dependent, which is where I was with my first marriage. Then there is the one that's that's a 50-50. So financially, energy, and everything.
Yeah.
And this is where I started with Ferry, with my new partner now, that we started in there because I had nothing. I was literally below zero. She was sometimes paying for my kids' food and literally saving
That's
my
how
ass.
you know she's ride or die, Pavel.
Yes.
That's
And
how you know.
And we started this way. But then the third one is that it goes beyond that. And I truly believe that's where we're at now. It's this beautiful dance of life and exploration and growth and partnership. I mean, we tour together. We share everything together.
Yeah.
And that's something that I never thought I would have, to be honest, that I was worthy of, or I even thought that, would be possible. And so now if I go back, like that is possible. Then the other thing I thought that I would never be possible is making abundance through the work I love, through my passion, purpose, and legacy. And that's, by the way, how I break down my life. So I live my passion, which is music, creating, frequency sounds on a modern beat.
Yeah.
My purpose is retreats, workshops, lectures, immersive experiences. And then my legacy is the businesses that we create or curate and build with this.
Man.
And if it's not for the greatest good of the whole, we don't touch it. It has to be aligned to bring the sixth and final golden age on earth. This is a strong words, but that's literally as high as we reach.
Do you mean heaven? Is that the age? What is the age?
So there's been like 5 civilizations, right? In the past.
There could have even been more for all we know.
More, but that
They're finding skeletons. Have you seen this? The skeletons that are like 13 feet long and they're being censored by the media because it doesn't fall into the archaeological narrative. Like there's so much we don't. You and I are just touching the tip of the iceberg today.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to go deeper, but like, there's so much we don't know. And I'll let you go, I promise. But like, whenever I receive guidance or wisdom from anyone, whether it's like an older mentor, like a seer or a wise elder, or even just a friend that I respect, I always check in with myself. And I ask, do I want their life? Do I want an essence of their life, of how they show up? Do I want an essence of their family, of their health, of their wealth, of their physicality? And for you, it's a hell yes in all the quadrants, because like I said, when we first started this podcast, you have a childlike joy to you, which I really love. And you've been able to blend and balance, like Lady Liberty, business and driving forward and spiritual growth, like holding all of things like this is not always easy. It takes a certain amount of gravitas, a certain amount of maturity. And so you've got it, my friend. So let's keep listening. Let's keep listening to what you're saying, because there's so much here. And I know I took us off course a little bit, so we'll go right back to course. The course is, how do we love ourselves? That's really the question that you brought to the table, that I just did a retreat on. I'm 43 years old. And I thought that I had done, quote, so much work, 600 interviews on this podcast and 200 more on other podcasts. And I thought that I had done the work, but really, like, healing is a spiral. And I've heard this from Beckwith. I've heard it actually in some of the models you've taught us today, that when we think we've healed something, it actually comes back around. But this is key. And I wonder how you feel. The cycles of those learnings start to shorten. So even though the healing comes back around to be healed and to be felt again, the time it takes between those cycles is shorter, and the pain or the discomfort of the healing may be lessened. It's not like the pain or the healing ever goes away. You see what I mean? It's like the healing becomes a spiral where it comes around and comes around. One of my mentors is in his 50s, and he had a wound come up from when he was 3. And this is one of the most evolved people that I know. How do you feel about that? Has that been something that comes into your life in that spiral? Like, in other words, what are you healing now?
It's so funny. So when it comes to healing work, right? We can do it consciously, or you can do it subconsciously, where it just kind of pulls out for us, right? Now, I truly believe that so many people are now on this conscious way of like re-seeing it, doing the work, and obviously a lot of people are not even close to that yet.
Yeah.
Now, it's that note that I believe that we're operating in this world. And 10 years ago, we had an option: be neutral, be fearful, or be in love, if I just simplify it. There's all these key notes that we can resonate in.
That's good.
Right?
That's
so
good.
The high note is the love. The low note is the fear. Just an example or acknowledging. Now, there's no in between anymore, because what is happening, and what I truly believe when people say there's a new earth coming, it came from so many different mystics and Nostradamus and channelers, like it's coming, that there's this new earth that's being prepared for us. Now, what that means to me, it's that earth where no more duality exists. And maybe it's fifth dimension, whatever we might call it in our, vocabulary. But in this place that we're going through, you can now see so many people left your area. So many people left your space. And especially, I think COVID was that perfect realignment with this.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had that fearful stand of people that were just completely driven by fear, pain, and anxiety, and then you had the other part that was like, this is horseshit, and I'm gonna continue using this as a way to grow.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. So because there's no more neutrality, we have to choose. And so every situation and every action now gives us that opportunity. And so to answer your question, what am I working through right now? So I'm coming out of this really long phase of worthiness with abundance. So up until recently, I used to, so during COVID, I literally started like 15 different companies, and one by one either didn't work or didn't align. And I did all of this work and nothing came out of it, or all of this work, they went under. Like, it was literally insane. Like, everything I touched went, sideways. And, what happened was I was so scared now, because I do a lot of consulting for companies that are in biohacking space or want to turn, from profit to purpose and lead the heart in their cultures, because I'm still very passionate about that. And so, recently I got hired on this new project that's incredible. But same thing, I was like, am I going to get paid? Is it going to work? Like, there was all of these doubts.
Yeah.
And so do these doubts still come? Absolutely. But here's the number one lesson that I always do right now when these fearful ideas or thoughts come. Because before, I would just marinate on them. I would just get really tired, really sick and tired of like, what if, and is it going to happen, and blah, 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 right? It's like a waste of time. But now I just continue feeling this white light, like this white connection. No matter where it is, just continue visualizing as if you're connected through the top of your head. It could be to the sun, great central sun. Just acknowledge that you are light, you are love. And when you die, you go back to that love. But if you integrate that love into your physical world, then you get it. Like, that's why we came here. We came here to be able to hear all of these senses, to be able to wake up others, to be able to love and live the life we wanted to. But without the physical integration, right, that's when we can go sideways. So I constantly, instead of listening to it, I go back into this connection. Then I also feel the connection to earth, something similar we did before, this session.
Yes.
And it helped me to continue being. And so when we talk about be, do, have, this is the being number one. You are in that state. I have chosen what I want. This is what I said. And the trust has to kick in. And so we trust more our postal man sometime. We write an address and we send a mail to someone and we trust that it will get there. The same way it works with universe, with the guidance, with the coding. You submit the request and you demand the request with love. You don't want to be demanding, like going to your angels and be like, do this right now, because they'll be like, fuck you, with love.
Yeah.
But you want to be like, hey guys, if it is for the greatest good of this whole, would you please help me make this happen? And then you project the images, you bring the emotions, and this works. Like, I am the example, living example that this is how I live now. It literally happens. And you gotta trust, and it will take shorter and shorter for the manifestation.
Yes.
That's the light speed that we were talking about. That, like, at the beginning, if you live very dense life, it's gonna take a little bit longer to pick up. But that trust, don't break the trust. Stay in that light. Continue washing yourself with that.
You literally just talked about the Tao in nomenclature that anybody could understand. That's what the whole time you were talking, I was feeling that wisdom in my throat. I was feeling and thinking, the great Tao loves and nourishes all things, but it does not lord it over them. In other words, your love, your belief that things are working out for you because your connection to God, your connection to yourself, that's your main focus, but you're not so attached to it. I don't get that, right? You're not so attached to it that it has to work out in the exact same way that you want it to. Otherwise, something else beautiful could come in when you release that. Like, the great Tao loves and nourishes all things, but it does not control, it does not strangle, almost like Chris Farley. Remember in that movie Black Sheep where he was like squeezing, I love the puppies, and he like squished the bread. We're not crushing our dreams by making them have to be exactly what we want. We're loving and nourishing all the things, but we're not like lording it over ourselves. We're not lording it over the companies or the relationships we work with, man. So good.
You actually, it's a fantastic lesson that you just are, or wisdom that you were talking about, because so many people, they get so upset by if things don't work out, and then they're like, see, I told you it's not going to work.
Yes.
But that came from your mind. So this is when the discernment has to happen, because if you're creating from your mind of what you think you should have, then you're getting it wrong. And this is when that alignment, the internet, where you got to connect and unhook so you can actually hear yourself. But for those that, things not work out for you, I have another song for you, and you're going to have to sing it with me. It is what it is, so what? Cha-cha-cha. You got to do the cha-cha, because that's how you clap it out.
I love it.
But here's the deal. What you going to do about it? Because so many people, I'm not talking about, I don't give a damn what's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, you surrender, you accept it for what it is, no matter what comes to your life, even if it came from your subconscious mind, that will happen. It is normal. But you simply, it is what it is, so what? You take a step back, you surrender, you breathe, you focus on your body's awareness, you don't react, you don't go into your fight or flight, right? You take charge of your breath. This is when breath work and awareness is key.
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do about it from a calm state of being.
So good, man. The next part of the podcast, which by the way, this is 2 podcasts in one, so y'all are in for a treat. The next part of the podcast is about the deep journey and the things that come out of the deep journey, which quite frankly, might be the monster in the closet that you and I were keeping in there, and we just didn't know it. Or maybe it's a collective monster that's being a wolf in sheep's clothing. People that potentially are pretending to be light, masquerading as light, but really, and this is something I've experienced for sure down in Costa Rica. I won't say the name, but y'all, if you're committed to this podcast, you already know the name. There are centers, there are places, there are people that are masquerading as light, that are putting people in situations that supposedly, bunny ears, will make them heal, will make them whole, will make them loved and complete. But it's actually, unfortunately, the lambs being led to slaughter. It kind of reminds me of Pinocchio's Island. You remember Pinocchio's Island? Where he would get them, the kids with the candy, and then turn them into donkeys when he's there. That is happening here on planet Earth.
That's a great analogy.
So to deny that is actually to deny that evil exists. And by the way, I'm with you. Like, love cannot know itself without experiencing its opposite. I truly believe that. There is evil in the world, but evil is essentially just chaos trying to seek order back to love. I'm not here to wax poetic and say that evil things don't happen, because you and I both know they do. Maybe we've even experienced these evil things, and that's okay, because it's part of the spiral. It's part of the learning. Take us to the dark. Take us to the dark. Take us to the iboga. And I'm just going to sit back and go on a ride with you. We're all going to go on a ride with you right now. Share with us the lessons, the experience. Like, maybe let's start with the dark, because from the darkness, I'm sure you pulled out a hell of a lot of light. And then we can talk about iboga and some of the things that we should be aware of, and some of the energies in the world that we should be aware of right now. And I say should actually is the wrong word. It's things that we get to be aware of so that we can empower ourselves and not fall into the gutter. I'm going to use that word because you've been using it so much. So take us to the dark first, maybe the most recent dark. I know you've done many. We don't have time to unpack all your lessons from all 7 or 10 dark retreats that you've done. What was your last dark retreat? What did you learn?
Yeah, so really quickly, just about that pain. Love cannot be seen without hate, or the duality,
opposite.
polarity.
Yeah.
That's only in a 3rd dimensional space. But by the way, in a 5th dimensional space, that does not exist. And that's where we're heading. For those that have tuned into that love, that hold that frequency, that are getting rid of the old, aka fear, past lives, everything that we've done up until now,
yes,
they won't have to experience this anymore. And that's the golden age that I was talking about. And that's what was actually shown to me during Iboga, is that life it's possible, but it's impossible for our minds to even imagine right now, because it's a world made new.
Yeah, you're right. I was speaking to that question from my experience in the 3D, right? Because I feel like so many of us, and please let's talk about this too. We are psychonauts, we explore, maybe we microdose, we take ourselves out of the 3D to learn lessons. But unless we come back and actually ground those in and stitch them in, braid them into ourselves, there's no point for us to go out there ever again, because all the work is still here for us to do. So that was the essence of my question. I appreciate the reframe, because it's true. Like, you're on point there. But take us to the dark, man, please.
Alrighty, so let's go into the dark. Now, how I learned about the darkness. I actually learned it when I was about 18 years old. I went into a Drumvalo Melchizedek workshop, and it was about opening your illuminated heart. And it was so fascinating, this workshop. For anybody, heart is the key, by the way. And if you want to learn how to access the heart, it's a 4-day workshop. He doesn't teach it anymore. You have to go through his instructors, but it's totally perfect. You're going to get so many tools, from the psychic powers to meditation, breath works. I mean, it's really incredible. But one of the days that we're discussing, they talked about these breatharians, these pranic beings. And one of those ladies that has been the forefront of this is Jas Muhin. Now, she's been my mentor for many years. I have become the ambassador of peace through her program. I have, done 4 dark rooms and met her all around the world to learn from her. As to me, she's one of those powerful female leaders that are, actualized. She can, she channels, she's on the Intergalactic Federation. I mean, it gets really deep what this lady, has done. Yep. And essentially, she does these dark rooms retreats that serve as an initiation into how to tap into your own source as the main fuel of your food, of nourishing on all levels. Now, I was like, wow, I just instantly called to it. Now, this is when I was already in America, but I couldn't get out of America. I had these conditional visa that if I left, then I would have to reapply, long story short. And so it took me about 5 years before I could go in for the first time. Now, when I went in, this is 7-8 years ago, the first time, I basically came in as a busy entrepreneur. I just wanted to give her my cell phone and drop into this outer state of being. And to be honest, I did not understand intergalactics, and I did not have that connection with the spirit that I understand, today. But I walk in there, and it was pretty brutal at first. I mean, no food, right? It's liquid water as a choice. Some people go dry completely.
No food for 10 days.
Correct.
And just water.
Correct.
And complete and total darkness.
In complete darkness, yeah.
And no phone.
No, I give it to her baggie because I would be one of those.
That's a joke. I know. I can't even fathom that. And just the challenge of that. How old were you?
25, 6.
Think about the percentage of 25, 26-year-olds on planet Earth that would want to go do that. It's pretty slim. Just calling that out.
Yeah. And this was when I was top Orange Theories, running, 25 companies. I mean, almost 500 employees. I mean, I literally,
to me, you know what that felt like when you said that? To me, it was your soul giving you guidance away from the path you were on.
Yes.
It was pulling you to the dark to learn something amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And it was because I, was on a totally different trajectory. I would probably be the next billionaire today if I kept on going that way. But that was not my dharma. That was not why, I came here.
Yeah.
Now, so I walk in there, and it takes about 3 or 4 days where you go through shrinking your stomach and you feel quite hungry, right? There is that phase. Then she tests your prana. So she teaches you through muscle testing how to test your prana levels, and just to kind of give the foundation. So number 1, you don't have to just eat physical food. Very important thing. The traditional mind, that's all we're taught, and it's been hidden because this would mean that you're a limitless being and you're free from food, pharma, blah 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 blah. And so 3 to 4 days took for unhook from that. Then 5th, 6th day, this is when the DMT start kicking in. So by about the 5th day, your pineal gland completely clears out. And it does take about that long, by the way, to start seeing lights everywhere. And at that point, she literally teaches you meditation on how to tone down the lights, because you see orbs, it's crazy. And no matter who you are, you I have not seen anybody there that wouldn't see.
Wow.
Now, 7th day is when it really hit me. So I remember I was laying down on the mat, and I just started crying, and I went into the deepest state of nirvana, bliss, whatever you might call it. And I must have been there for hours. You don't know time, right? You just hear the frogs in the morning, so okay, it must be morning. And then the cycles at night. And at that point, this is when everything just made sense. So I got revealed the Noah Aeon. I got revealed that I am totally off my path. I got revealed that I want to start going back to music that I love the most, that I want to bring all of these teachings. Because already back then, I started my spiritual journey very young, 15, 16, when I went back in. And when I was a professional cyclist, instead of me just resting from race to race, I read Conversations with God and Eckhart Tolle. And then, I was reading all of these books. And maybe a funny little thing, I paid my friend to finish online high school for me when I was 17, because I already had my first business. And I literally, I was so against the school system, like it was not for me, that I don't even have a technically high school up until today. It's all self-taught, self-growth, what I actually wanted to tune into. But I basically walked out of there, and this is when I was like, I want to start selling, everything. And this honestly was the second extreme. And this is also when I started losing everything, because I had all of these commitments on a business level for opening new locations and funding new build outs that I got into as I was selling them. I got into a cash flow issue, because before I had a great cash flow to keep on, forcing all of the funds forward.
Keyword forcing.
Yeah. I mean, deploying.
Sure.
And essentially, when that dried out, that's when I went into deep debt. And I remember the day every account was frozen, then they just were taking everything. And I was going from one workshop to another. And even the workshop money that we were making money from, it would not cover enough to go below zero. So I had to live on Venmo, PayPal. It was crazy. But in that moment, this is where the first true process of unhooking happened for me. And this is when I truly saw what the path is. And so one thing that I get every single time that I go back is that I realign. And now the alignment is not so far as it was before, right? So it's like a much clearer. But what I did is I went back every 7 years of my life that I could remember, just to keep my mind occupied. And I was like, how did that serve me? Who did I hurt? What did I do wrong? What did I do well? And then after about 4 days, you run out of memories. So then the next days, I start thinking, what do I actually want? And that's when I start cultivating, I want to be a DJ, and I want to, start doing retreats and workshops and do the life of service. And a little reminder, so think about our life, we're either in self-mastery or we're in service. And so when you're in self-mastery, you're learning, observing, growing on yourself, the me. And when you are in service, you share that with others. And if you're there and thinking that you don't have the word to speak to anyone else, you are at complete fault, because everybody has a word for somebody else. This is why we're coded into our groups. It might not be millions.
That's right.
Who cares? It might be 5 people that will affect millions. You never know what's going to happen. And so that's just a reminder for...
On that note, because we're having so much fun, I had someone message me. They said, I found your podcast 5 years ago. And I was sitting at it brings up emotion to me just to talk about it. It's why I do what I do, She was sitting at her desk, and she's probably listening right now. And she said, there was an episode that you did with Paul Chek, and it was about your roots can't touch hell unless your branches touch heaven. And I'm paraphrasing the young wisdom. And she said from there, that was a journey for her to heal her inner child. And that's just one human. So we never know who's listening. Case in point, that's why I'm sharing. We never know who's listening. So even if you're of service to one person, you don't know if that one person is going to ripple the love of your creation, of what you're doing in the world, and it might touch 1,000 people. And that's the ripple in the lake. So I had to share that, because I get to share that because it's like, we just never know, Pavel. How many people will be touched by this conversation that we'll never meet, but they'll touch other people that we'll never meet as well? I mean, that's the beauty of life. That's what we're doing here, man. So thank you for that reminder.
That's the collective, right? Do you see how that all affects us? And it affects us dramatically. That's why we need that collective to create this collective construct, right? Just like we're creating our life, we're also creating it in a group. And by the way, this is what came to me on an Iboga. I mean, you literally came to me. This is what I messaged you or emailed you back then right after.
I remember.
Because what I love about you is you've stuck to your truth. You've stuck in your heart. And there's so much deception in this world. And on this path, you're going to find a lot of deception yourself. Yeah. And it is so important to know how to verify, right, this information. Is it limited or is it limitless? That's as simple as that question, by the way, that I asked now.
That's good.
And what I love is you create this portal of education, and education equals inspiration, and it gives people motivation, which will make the result in this quantum shift. So thank you so much on behalf of everybody listening, because I love what you do and where you've become.
Thank you, man.
And, when I went through all of these things, right? So I've done every plant medicine and combo. I mean, literally, I wanted to try it all, right? I was a seeker of truth. Like, what is the answer? And in this process, I want to start maybe bringing some of these warnings of deception, because what is happening right now? So some of the true shamans, they're saying that ayahuasca spirit is literally deploying from ayahuasca because of the misuse. That mushroom spirit is literally deploying because of the industrialization. THC, I don't even have to, cannabis been out for a long time when it comes to that true meaning. And the amount of justifications I hear and see in the spiritual community is beyond control. And now this is what people have to really discern, right? There's that silent voice and there's that loud voice. That loud voice, the highest level of ego is the spiritual illusionist, the spiritual storyteller, that will be so conscious that is subconsciously conscious of consciousness itself. And what I mean by this is we tend to justify every situation. And let me tell you something, I do events all over the world, and I continue seeing people now taking mushrooms into our events, taking all of these different things. And don't get me wrong, I was there, right? I used it for the wrong reason. I misused it. I used it for partying, and I am, not proud of that at all, but it led me to understand what it's actually for. And to give you, for example, true purpose of mushrooms, right? So a lot of people do it for the colors and for the sounds. That's a egoic third chakra usage of mushrooms. If you use mushrooms properly, you got to do a much higher dose. The microdosing, yes, can work for brain, yes, can do it, but so can breath work, and so can, just rebalancing your chemistry.
You need to be at a certain place of consciousness and awareness in order for the microdose to actually move you towards love.
Exactly, to actually be properly utilized. Now, here's the thing. So when I went to my first Iboga and Ibogaine, I went into these women. And by the way, I love the work of the female tribes and women because they have been so estimated by men, and obviously patriarchism and what we're coming out of is brutal. So we have to rebalance this masculine and feminine. Now, what they do, they're actually gatekeepers of true wisdom, of the Leonardic, Christ consciousness, so to speak. Now, how they use mushrooms, and they taught me how to properly, for the first time, after using it like 60 times, before I go in there, I for the first time knew what true mushrooms experience is. Now, what it's used for? So they gave me 5 grams, which I was kind of scared. I don't think I've ever even taken that much.
I've never done that much.
But yeah, right? It's gotta be like commitment.
Yeah.
But this is how they did it. They blindfolded me, no music, nothing, just silence, completely laying down in my bed. That was it, and holding that space. They do it as part of the 3rd or 4th day before Iboga. So they have it's a 7-day minimum and then 10-day ideal process. Because before you even take Iboga, you have to go through, and by the way, they do it really, they modernize things too. So they speak to the Western world. They use infrared sauna, niacin, flushes, and then all of the root barks that will cleanse you, flush you, and clear all the parasites, because as above, so below. And if you have parasites on the inside, you're gonna have parasites in your life on the outside. Just a side note. And so I went into this thing, right? And what happened was, so I actually didn't go completely out of it was the opposite. I went into seeing the actual notes and constructs of energy beyond the 3D, beyond the physical. Now, in that process, I start seeing exactly how we're being manipulated and controlled. And, I know you had the mind virus.
Paul Levy.
Paul Levy here.
Wetiko.
And Wetiko. And this is what was revealed to me. So when you go into a deep journey with mushrooms, you bypass all the colors, all the lights. I didn't see any of that. The first 30 minutes, you see a bunch of clutter, right? Bunch of weird pictures and images. And all that is your subconscious mind releasing porn and Netflix and movies. It wants to go out.
That's right.
When you get through that cleansing process, right? Because that has to go out too, so you can actually see. Then you move into this office. I call it the office. I literally went into an office, and at that point I was sitting and I'm just like, okay, this is this. I just see folders of things and information as if I was inside of a computer in a sense. Maybe this is why people sometimes get the Matrix visions, because it was kind of like that.
Sure.
But what I saw was the roadmaps and roads of energies and constructs, how it's being laid on. And this is the being. So we do have these powers here that don't have good intentions with our life. And, whatever it's the secret societies and the dark governments and so forth, they're actually extremely spiritually evolved. They understand all of this, but they use it in a way to control the mind, to control our lives. Now, in that process, I saw everything. So it was like one note off. And so how they operate, they are one note off, meaning I use the music as an example. 440 hertz has been known to be distorted to our brain. It's been made by Rockefeller, I think in 1916-ish, as like the gold standard for radio, TVs, and beyond. And that's a perfect example, because if you just go 441, 442, you're one note closer to God. And so what they do is they create deception where they will speak the right message, speak the right language. They're going to speak the love. For example, New Age was created by these morons to basically create complete deception, to be on a spiritual path where they suck your consciousness out of you. Now, this is what happens in today if ayahuasca is not done properly. The number one worst cleanses that they have, these women with iboga, is people coming out of ayahuasca. They even said, we don't even want to work with people that have done ayahuasca because of the amount of leeches and spiritual toxicity, parasites that they have been attached to. Now, that showed me so much more of like, how does this actually operate? Because then you can choose the note that you want to be sequenced in. Right? So think about it just like a radio, right? You could be on 96.2, right? Or 96.2 and a half. And that's exactly how close they are. They're like 96.2 and a half. So it seems like you're the right thing. It seems like, they're saying the right stuff, but it's a deception to basically lead into fear, pain, limited mindset. So again, what is limitless and what is limited? That's the choice. Now, what our responsibility is to tune into that frequency of love so more and more people can experience this quantum leap. More and more people can experience this shift that then through the collective can change, the vibratory accord that we are in. And so, yeah.
There's so much there. Let's just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath with us. Because hearing that, Pavel, can be pretty jarring to someone, especially someone who's been on a, quote, spiritual path. And really what I feel from you, it's funny, it's the same with the QI technology we're going to talk about. There gets to be this path of trusting and alignment, that you trust yourself enough to be attuned to know when someone is full of shit and know when they're, like you said, one note off. But that alignment, that attunement process, sometimes I've found for myself, actually most times, unfortunately, I have found that I only experience that when I go into massive dark or when I go into massive gutter. Like the craziness and what I experienced in Costa Rica with my ayahuasca journey. The first one a little bit, but definitely the second one. Unfortunately, the leader of that place was pushing people to drink as much medicine as possible. The space had leaky energy. And as I talked about with Hamilton Souther on the podcast, the shaman is responsible from an energy cord to every single participant. And so if anybody has a psychic break, or, the Native Americans call it soul loss, a psychic shattering, that is actually the responsibility of the shaman to guide and wield that medicine in a proper way. So when you talked about these ladies that led you, it's clear to me that you had a discernment process around how you could trust them, why you could trust them. How did you do that? I think this is a really, really important point for all of us here that are going to go the path of medicine in any way. Like, how exactly did you do that? Were you attuned yourself to know that this was the trusted path, that this shaman, this teacher, this healer was someone that you were willing to surrender to? Because it's a surrender process. When we put ourselves in these situations, we are very malleable. We are very open to the light and to the dark. So how did you do that exactly?
So the spiritual senses, this is when they kick in. And this is why, don't even go into anything like this until you feel like you've evolved enough on your path to be able to open yourself up to something like this. And by the way, one of the biggest benefits of iboga, it actually takes all of these parasites out. So what's amazing, because it's like the master, masculine medicine, it actually helps people to, get all these roots or hooks out of their system. And so, in that process, before I even, got to know them, the way it happened was, so I had a brother that has been struggling with drugs, alcohol. He's been with mafia his whole life. And I felt so, called to help him, because obviously, like, this is where I'm at. And I've tried to help him his whole life, but it wasn't, clicking until this one day where I was looking for him, because I kept on getting dreams that he's dead, like really bad dreams. So then I started searching for him, and he was somewhere in Barcelona. And so I found through some of his another girlfriend, that was saying that he's with some major movers of cocaine from Morocco to Spain, and that he is completely out of his mind and he needs help. And so somehow, by grace of God, I get the contact for one of the literally the drug lords that gets him on the phone. And I call him, and he literally can't even speak. Like he was out, like somewhere else. Now I'm like, bro, do you want to be helped or not? And that was my biggest question. And he said, yes, I want to be helped. That's all I needed to hear. I gave him a plane ticket that same night, and I basically sent him to these ladies, because I had this inner feeling, inner calling that they could help him. And also Iboga has been known to help him, right? Now, long story short, this was like a movie. Like literally it could be a movie scene, because he ended up, I get him a hotel at the airport. So it's 2-minute walk, right? So he cannot miss the flight. Well, cops come and knock on his door that he has a court next day, like in the same 24 hours. Then he misses the freaking plane. So while I am teaching a private client, I'm literally teaching them breath work. I'm booking him second flight, whatever the closest one was to him. He gets on the plane, flies there, and then it begins. So they started him with microdoses first, just to start cleansing. They really are gentle with the way they do it. And he goes into a complete panic. Everything everything comes out, right? Like all of his, he was homeless, for days. He was like really, really raw, like life, right? He was living a very, hard life. And so he thinks that I sent him there to kill him.
It probably felt like that.
It did. He's like, these ladies are trying to kill me. He's literally calling me. He's like, I need to get out of here. Help me. And so, day by day, it happens and happens until the 10th day or so. And then I fly in there with our whole family as a way to support him. But I knew if he doesn't have the first 10 days, there's no one to talk to. So that's what completely pivoted his life from darkness. He literally, it took another probably year to really integrate. And it took a lot of combo before he stopped drinking alcohol and completely, removed, drugs out of his system. But it literally healed him. And so this journey started with me sending him there, not even knowing them. Imagine it was a crazy risk, but it came from knowing. And again, when you know, you don't think. When you think, you don't know. And so these senses are everything to our life. And if we start communicating, using them, strengthening them, then we won't have any questions, because we will know all the answers.
Wow, what an amazing story. I love that story, because it's funny. I'm flashing back to maybe 6 months ago, and we had Kelly Brogan here sitting right where you're sitting. And she said, when you think someone else needs therapy, you need therapy. And it's such a paradox, right? When we have the desire to help, and it's coming from 100% clean heart, no ego attachment, then maybe you don't need therapy. Maybe you are just trying to help them. But I wonder, I know in my life, not to project my stuff on you, in my life, when I've been focused on Carrie or my mom or my brother or my dad, when all I'm focused on is this person treating me a certain way or this person being healed, I'm actually hiding from my own shit. And that's happened quite a bit. And I think it's really beautiful and honestly very courageous that you went to help your brother and then you found it yourself. What came through in the timeline of the bridge of your brother going to do the deep work with Iboga, having his healing, and then you diving deep into Iboga, which allows you to come here and share with tens of thousands of people about the discernment process and trusting the medicine and trusting the healer only if it's pure. Remember what he said, if it's 1 degree off, 1 note off, it can literally send us in a completely demonic direction. So I'm curious, man, what did that bridge look like between your brother being healed and then you having your experience? And share a little bit more about what you learned and what kind of bubbled up, not kind of, what definitely bubbled up to the surface there.
Yeah, so I saw it as part of my journey through self-transformation. Family is our foundation, and we incarnated it with our family for a reason. And so I had a lot of past. So I used to really reject my brother. I was not a good person to him growing up, and I left home when I was 15, so I wasn't really with him after that. But that's when also he just went sideways. And so what's interesting is I really wanted to figure out a way how to process through this, right? Because I knew that what he was going through, I was going through on a much milder way as well, because I also have very addictive personality and went into, drugs and went into a lot of alcohol. And, now it's been 3 years since I stopped drinking alcohol. And that, by the way, shifted everything. That's when I opened truly.
I can go the rest of my life without having one sip of alcohol.
And I actually wouldn't. Yeah. It's a poison. And it's a poison specifically kept for us here to keep us damned and keep us in this cycle.
Go into that a little bit, please.
So when I was talking about deception, now here's the hard part to feel bad about the people that are deceiving, because a lot of people that are deceiving, they're deceived themselves. And this is when we have to forgive them and just say thank you, but no thank you for now, because they don't know any better until they discover it for themselves. You just have the choice, right? Do you want to be in their collective construct, or do you want to recreate your own? Now, alcohol specifically was a main symbolic movement for me to stop any toxicity in my life. And this was the process of cleaning up anything that I was dependent on, toxic by, or and this is when, like, after I stopped drinking alcohol, it actually took a while to integrate, because that's when I stopped doing DJing in nightclubs, because when I was sober in nightclubs, I was like, what am I doing here? And it was a rude awakening why I started a conscious party movement, sober dances. And what we do today is called BDM, breath dance meditation.
I love that.
Which came from EDM.
That's so good.
Now, in this process, when I stopped drinking alcohol, then things start shifting, because of that. One poison after another was no longer putting all these obstacles around my hearing, seeing, feeling, right? So that's why the spiritual senses are so important, but not just to take time to tune into them, but also clear out all the things that are poisoning them.
Yeah.
Now, after that, I'll give you a funny story how I actually really stopped. So about 6 months later, and this is a crazy dichotomy. So I'm in Switzerland, DJing and doing speaking at this psychedelic House of Davos thing, and basically. These servers, they kept on coming to me, and they were like, do you want to have a drink while I'm DJing, right? And I'm like, no, thank you, I don't drink, no. So after that, Ferry left home. So then there was the Aeon part of me, like the guy that has, his little thing goes up.
The one that Geppetto talks to us about. Don't do that. Let your conscience be your guide.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll take a double. So I drink a double shot of vodka, and I then have to drive home. So after about half an hour, it was over, right? And then somebody reports me that I'm swearing on the road, and I think I was just on my phone, honestly, which is not good either. But I am driving, and I get caught by police, right? And I am, in the middle of Switzerland, and they ask me, have you drank anything tonight? And I'm like, no, no, sir. And then they're like, well, we don't have a breathalyzer here. We're going to have to wait 30 minutes before our next, cup basically shows up. So then I'm waiting there while he's like flashing light on me. And then I'm like, there's raisins, there's this. I just started eating everything that's there. And then I thought that there was zero tolerance, because in European Union, there's zero tolerance. But in Switzerland, thank God, there is a little bit. Now, what I start telling myself, I'm like, angels, if you're there, I need your help. Please, if you help me get out of this without going to jail, I will never touch alcohol ever again. And so 30 minutes later, he shows up, and I did have a little bit. It was like 0.1 something, and it was up to 0.2 was like whatever the limit. And so, and it's 200 yards away from home. That's the funniest part about it. So they let me go, and I did not touch ever since, because I needed to have that experience to have a full closure.
Damn. So the angels heard your prayers.
They did.
And I don't want that to be an excuse for anybody to kind of like try to cheat the system, because I don't feel like you were cheating it. I feel like really it was just a course correction for your soul, because your soul knew that alcohol no longer served it, but you needed to feel this visceral like fear. It was probably all kinds of things were probably going through your head. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to be stuck in Switzerland? So sometimes fear, rational fear, can be a really powerful motivator.
Yep.
Not everything, like you said, has to come from the gutter, but not everything has to come from love and light either. It's a paradox within a paradox.
But let me tell you something. So what was happening to me, even though it was already a while since I, didn't drink anything, I kept on going into restaurants, and then I would get the wine list, right? And then like that old part of me kept on reactivating, and I'd be like, oh, maybe just a beer or this. And this is how it used to start for me. I do one beer, and then I go into second beer, third beer, drugs, and then like it went into a total downgrading spiral that sometimes then lasts for days, after. And when we take enough choices that go into this dark, matter, we are in the degenerative spiral of life.
Yeah.
But then when and it takes so long to rebuild, right? But what this experience did for me is I never even looked ever since. Like I did not care. That whole little even question was gone, and I needed to shut off that little devil voice inside of me that was still pulling me back to that deception.
Yeah, this to me feels like Wetiko, and it feels like Wetiko exiting, because by the way, like Wetiko, I think, and Paul Levy talked about this, encapsulated in the Wetiko itself, in the lie, in the mind virus, is the solution itself. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. Because in that piercing of your, I guess you could say, ego, the darkness of you, trying to pull you back is what you said, there's also the empowerment of you just kindly saying no. To quote Neo in The Matrix, no. Remember we held his hand up and the bullets fell? He wasn't angry anymore. He just accepted. He made a decision within himself that he was just done. He was done being in fear. You made a decision that you were done with alcohol. It came through that experience. Man, I feel like we all have these come to Jesus, come to God moments. And my prayer is that it doesn't have to be so hard for people. There's probably right now someone listening that is struggling with addiction, struggling. Mm-hmm. And yes, we're going to link Paul's podcast. I think watch this podcast in entirety 3 times, listen to Pavel 3 times, then watch Paul Levy. We'll link that in the show notes, because essentially what I'm doing my best to communicate to you is this: Wetiko is in all of us at all times. And the only way that it feeds and grows is if we feed it anger and fear and the opposite of love. That's what feeds it. Mm-hmm. And it's such a paradox, because we all go through this human experience where we all feel anger at times. We all feel jealousy at times. But the degree they're fleeting or not is the degree that we've actually loved and done work on ourselves. And I know that's a very reductionistic answer. It's like, oh, just do work on yourself. Just love yourself. It's not a light switch, brother. We can't just flick a switch and love ourselves. There's work that gets to be done. And this is what we've been talking about on this podcast.
Well, think about, if by some science we know that this universe is holographic, right? Think about it as a hologram, a construct of energy that is all love, all that is love, right? Like the main foundation of everything is love. But within that framework, right, there can be other holograms and other realities that can be co-created by different groups. Now, what media, TVs, radios, even many books do, they basically feed that other construct that, only can survive on more fear, more pain, more war, more power.
That's it.
But then when we first, there's a process of clearing out, right, unhooking from that, because it's all we've known. And so part of our identity has to go, and that is scary, right? Because if people are fearful of, looking into their past relationships or traumas, right? At the end of the fear and pain is love, but to get through it is it takes a true strong heart to get through. Mm-hmm. But when we get through it, now hello, welcome, good morning, because we have, you, we have made it to why are we here on earth?
Man, I really love that. And I think about all these ways, and it's not to focus on the ways, it's just to identify the ways that we are being essentially poisoned, right, with the mind virus, but also we're being poisoned by just the air around us. Like right now, you and I are being bathed. We're in an apartment complex. So the studio's here in a nice big complex. And all my neighbors have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is all around us everywhere. And that is definitely shifting us, especially with 5G towers. And my heart goes out to people that live in like deep cities like New York City. Can you imagine the level of electrosmog and the level of poison that people are being bathed in while they fucking sleep? And this is the hard part for people to grasp. EMF is 24/7, 365. It is part of, like you described, taking us off of one note of living in love. How exactly did you find this? We're going to talk about this QI device, by the way. I have one of these right here. I have one at my house. Man, I don't know if it's placebo. I don't know if it's science. I don't exactly know what it is. It just feels damn good to have it on the table. So talk to us about this path, because it's a culmination of everything we've shared today. All your lessons, all your learning, like the fact that you are now leading this company, and it's part of how you're going to heal the world with your dancing and with the, what did you call it instead of EDM?
BDM.
BDM. Not BDSM, BDM.
No, different.
This is a really big way that we can start cutting down on the poison and the toxicity and the ways that we are essentially being manipulated. And I know it's a hard topic for people to really take in. Maybe somebody already shut off the podcast because they don't want to hear it anymore. But for the seekers that are with us, for the people that believe in what you and I believe, that love is here, we just get to tune into it. How exactly does this technology allow us to tune into that, to be on the right path and to not be poisoned, essentially? That's what electrosmog is.
So part of that journey through self-transformation, this is part of the collective. So you know how we discuss the physical, mental, emotional, right, spiritual, right? That is all ways how we realize ourselves and how we have to transform. Now, all of this dark matter or darkness or whatever we call this Vutiko mind virus.
You could put whatever name you want on it.
It really matters.
It's essentially the opposite of love.
It's just whatever is limiting you, right? They are very well aware how to control us. And it's funny you mentioned sleep, because sleep is when we are going into the astral realms of existence. And if they can control even that, right, then they can control how you're going to come back and how you're going to integrate back. And that is also a problem.
I just got a hit from somebody that's watching. What do you mean by they?
So they or them is basically, so this is where you can get wooey wow, right? And I don't want to, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. This came from deep visions and being in Iboga. And it is coming from many different people.
Sure.
But there's a certain amount of group of people that are very limited, that are controlling our entire world, our entire life. Now, whatever it's secret societies, the dark governments, these people have technologies that we've never even thought of. Stephen Greer, by the way, he's one of the people that are now exposing a lot of this, technologies, and he does a lot of the alien work.
Yeah,
and with his, I think
it's a good documentary on Netflix.
It's amazing, and he's got over 900 whistleblowers, basically proving that they have all of these frequency devices and free energy and everything that would make the golden age here within 10 years. It's already here, but they're holding this for whatever reason, which I think is, they're basically deceived by hate, pain, fear.
And they're drunk on the power of it.
They're drunk on the power of it. And it's such a small, limited amount of people that controls the whole world. Now, these people are running on that note, that low note, right? And they know that frequency is everything, right? And so when we talked about frequency, right, in a form of, let's say, brainwaves, they know that if they keep us in a high beta, then we're anxious, we're always overthinking, and that is social media, that is scrolling, that is doing that. As long as we are just lost in it and we don't unhook, then they can control us. And this comes, very easily. You can explain this when you spend enough time on social media, you start feeling agitated. You just feel like you're not there. And by the way, if you ever do watch TVs and social media, what you want to do, I'm not saying stop using that, just step into your body, ask yourself, where am I? Are you in the phone? Like, is your consciousness in the phone or is your consciousness in your body? Sometimes it's somewhere even outside of the body.
Yeah.
So first thing first, we constantly want to be in the body, relaxed, full body expression, and slow, subtle breath. James Nestor, he talks about the 5.5 on inhale, 5.5 on exhale, in and out of your nose. It's the golden standard for longevity and how to breathe properly. And if you're in that state, then these things don't move you because you're watching it with yourself and then expressing that as an extension of you. Now, what happens with these things like EMFs? So part of this journey, I came about that when I start unhooking from all of these things, I start realizing what is the material of the clothing that I'm wearing, what is the water that I'm drinking, air that I'm breathing, paint in the house that we're having. Like it's really anything on the collective that touches the we have to create the right environment to basically work for us as well. Because otherwise, if you wake up in the morning and let's say you have a mold in your house, let's say that you have, a virus running in your body, let's say that your relationship doesn't work, think about it as like 20% down, 20% down, 20% down, and maybe you were left with 40% to tackle this life.
You're describing the allostatic load. There's only so much water we can fit in the bathtub, right? So essentially, like we only have this much stress capacity. And so if the water starts boiling over, that's disease, that's cancer.
Yes. And so imagine that you wake up every day and you're already with these obstacles. It's going to be a tough journey through self-transformation because you're going to have to face all this before you can, move from that. Now, when I lived in Houston for a little bit of time during COVID, we were there to build world's first ever biohacking hotel, and it failed because of funding, because of COVID. And it was one of those things that I was discussing earlier, how I had one project after another that was amazing but failed. And essentially, I've never lived in super dense city. I was in downtown Houston in a high rise, and during that same time, the 5G towers were rolled out. And, this was that whole period where nobody had any sorts of say in it, like yes, no, like, is there any science? Yes, no, right?
Yeah.
And so it was rolled out for a purpose, which we don't have to get into. But what happened was I started feeling depressed. I started feeling tired and I couldn't sleep well. And I was like, it's just agitated. And I did not know why is that. And my inner clock kept on telling me, leave Houston. So we kept on going to Mexico. We kept on going everywhere else, but to be in the downtown. Every time I came back, the same feelings came back right away. And at that point, I was already very healthy, right? Like knowing all of this stuff. And so I looked out of my window and I saw a 5G tower literally like 100 yards or 50 yards right in front of my window. And then I was like, I believed in this EMF thing, but like not really, like, because there's so much, also deception, because most studies, if you Google this, they're made by their industry. They're made by the cell phone towers, and none of the first search of Google will ever find you that there has been over 6,000 studies proving the negative effects of any EMF.
Well, you gotta stop using Google. You gotta use like another browser or something.
Correct.
Private browser.
Yes, but here's the thing. So EMFs, right, are either man-made or natural. Natural is sun, right? There is nothing wrong with that. If you earth yourself, ground yourself, I mean, we've been living with that forever. But 100 years ago, there was no cell phone towers. There's been no microwaves. There's been no, appliances and also statics and dirty electricity. I mean, it can go on, right? Now, in this process, I start looking into the actual science. I start following Dr. Mercola. I read the book EMFs, which is an amazing book that will explain to you everything about like why this is an actual serious thing to look into. And he compares EMFs into cigarettes in 50s. So in 1950s, cigarettes were believed to be good for you. And doctors, scientists, they pushed it as like, it's the new way to be. It was like a whole thing. It took them 50 years before they start releasing the negative studies about cigarettes. So it wasn't until literally like 90s that, it started being banned because of the amount of cancers and repercussions that we've seen. Mm-hmm. Now, what Dr. Mercola says, he thinks that EMFs are exactly that. It's the hidden pain behind our sleep, behind our energy, behind, so many countless things, including Alzheimer, including, diseases that haven't been here in the 70s. They're also linked to this, plus sugar. It like accelerates, by the way. And so when you then add 5Gs on top, there is a certain amount of people, about 3% of the world, that are electro-hypersensitive. These people cannot even hold cell phone like this because they'll just like...
A friend of mine's wife is like that. She literally asked us, could you turn your cell phones off when we hang out? And at first we were like, what? But then she actually talked to us about her experience. And I realized that for her, like you said, 3% of the people, that shit's real.
So this is actually a medical term. This is a medical term that you're electro-hypersensitive, and it's a real thing that again has been, not talked about.
Yeah.
Now, people, we've had this time after time. If they just hold this device, these people that are electro-hypersensitive, they immediately can be on a phone for an hour, for example. And so anyway, that was just for the electro-hypersensitive.
Yes.
Now, then there is another 35 to 40% of the population that are just sensitive, that have a mild issues. And this is when I fall in, where I have unexplained health issues. I'm not sure why I feel iffy and just like, you don't feel yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's me. And then the other part, everybody's affected. But think about EMFs as toxins. You take enough toxins and it will kill you. You get exposed enough with EMF, and it may happen in 5 years, it may happen in 30 years.
Yeah.
And that's what Dr. McCullough is warning, that the EMFs are the new cigarettes, and it's worse because you can't see it. Cigarettes, you can see the smog, right? But with EMFs, you cannot.
Yeah.
And so when I started looking into it, I was like, well, this might be the issue. And then I tried everything. So I tried the harmonization devices. Basically, me, like I went all in on
like the ultimate N=1.
Yeah, I was like, show me the way.
Pavel tries everything. He just jumps into the cold plunge naked.
Yes, Burning Man. So I tried everything, and I did not really feel much difference unless I was somewhere in nature, unless I was somewhere outside of big cities, right? Ooh. So then I'm actually on Iboga, and I kid you not, this happened during my second Iboga journey. I get this contact somehow comes to me, and this is like the third day after or before mushrooms, the 5 grams, that somebody calls me that there is an opportunity that they need a master distributor for the key shields or for the waveguard devices. And I'm like literally, in the middle of Iboga journey. And so I go to sleep and I wake up at like 5 a.m. It literally like pulls me out of sleep. And I get the full thing, what I have to do to get this deal. So I write out all of the things, like all of the stuff. And, I'm competing against like $100 million companies, So, and I'm literally have no proven record with e-commerce specifically, have business record, but nothing when it comes to this. So I write all of this out. It works out. I didn't even try it at that time. It was a pure just knowing I have to, do this. And so then I ended up coming back to US. They shipped this to me, and then it took me the first 3 days of having this, it was too intense. I had a really wild dreams. I couldn't really sleep. And then when I talked to the inventor, it's actually detoxing EMFs out of our system. So some people literally have to purge radiation, just like a detox pathways from our bodies, from our systems.
How does it do that?
So here's what's incredible about this. This is not another harmonization device. This works on something called depolarization. And it's a brand new term by a Greek scientist that discovered this. And what it is, it does not eliminate EMFs. So if you measure this, it does not get rid of EMFs. What it does, it renaturalizes the negative EMFs back into the Earth's frequency, back into the natural state. So now what we're saying is, technology is not going anywhere, right? If you look at the freaking satellites alone, there's going to be 40,000 satellites in next 10 years. We're going to be carpeted everywhere and no choice again, right? But this, I truly believe, is the answer when it comes to our collective frequency and personal, to be able to stay in that natural state of being. And I travel with it everywhere. I have a bigger one at home because the bigger ones, they cover the entire 3 to 4 bedroom house. And then we have an even bigger one that covers 25-story building.
Oh, so you can help your neighbors if you're in an apartment complex.
Yes. And so what it does, so it naturalizes the negative effects of man-made EMF. Now, what other thing it also does the same thing for animals, pets, your groceries, because groceries have water in them. So it actually renaturalizes water and water itself. And so one of my like secret wishes is I want to have the big ones in a grocery stores, because imagine if you eat radiation-free food.
Sure.
And so that's some of the visions that we have how to,
Okay, now you got my science hat on. Clink, what is inside of this? Because to me, it looks like some really tightly wound copper. There's something special in here. By the way, I was at the airport and TSA was like, what is this? Like almost accusing me of like bringing a bomb on a plane. I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. It's just to make EMF better for our bodies. And she was like, what? They actually had 3 people come over, look at it. One guy might have flipped open his phone, I don't know, just to check and see if it was real. And then they finally let me go. They were like, going all like, they put the things on it to make sure it's not explosive. And so I knew if it generated that much buzz with people that didn't know about it, and I at least knew a little bit about the depolarization science because I looked at the website, it then sparked me to go, okay, well, what's actually inside of it? Like what's in the core of it? Like, does it absorb the EMF? Does it itself become like a magnetic repellent of EMF? Because depolarization is different than blocking. If this was here, and it was a device that blocked EMF, my phone wouldn't work. And we can't operate in a world like that because here we are, man, being bathed in a world of electricity, right? So what's actually inside of it that allows it to depolarize? What's in there?
Yeah, so Data is okay. One thing that, quick tip, when you put it like this and you run it through security, they will see it properly. And then there is less liquid than the norm.
Okay.
So that's the way how to clear. So that way it's easier for you.
Flip it over.
Yeah,
okay,
so always flip it over and always take it out of your bag. I always have to do it because then same thing. Otherwise, oh my god,
what is this?
Explosive expert, this expert. I'm like, and what I say is I just say that I'm EMF sensitive and it helps control my heart rate. And so they usually don't say much more. But anyway, so inside of it is something called key liquid. And this is the proprietary blend that the inventor was able to create. Now, the inventor, Hagen Thiers, he's actually inventor of the year in European Union for this technology. So it's that groundbreaking. And basically, so what it works, he figured out a way how to infuse the full color spectrum inside of this liquid. Now, on top, there is a little crystal. And inside of the key liquid, so if you open up the liquid and you flipped it upside down, it does not go down. It is not bound to gravity. Really interesting, fact. And basically, it creates kind of like the torus field because depending on how many of the liquids are inside of it, then that's how big the field strength of it is. So that's why, like, if you have a bigger one, it's got just way more of that key liquid, and so it extends way further for this process to happen. Now, this key liquid, so, because it's proprietary, he doesn't even tell us exactly how that works, but it's charged by these chambers, and these are extremely expensive chambers where it's exposed to immense amount of radiation to basically test it, but also to charge it. And so, after about 3 to 5 years, you have to recharge the device depending on the amount of use. And also if you're in New York versus if you are...
Do you just send it in to get it recharged?
Yeah, so you can either send it in or there's like a buyback program where it's, much cheaper.
Okay.
But that's why that it's actually using something, right? Like the liquid to be able to work with that field strength. Now, what's also amazing, so I love using the copper for meditation. So one of my favorite ways is I just put it right here around my heart and I just tune in, and it also helps you ground, right? There's also much studies on copper itself, but that is not the main point of this.
Got it.
That's just like a family add-on.
I'm so glad I asked you that, because at first glance I was like, what's the relationship with copper and the depolarization? So it's actually this liquid. And look, I don't blame the scientists for keeping it under wraps. Like, there are probably so many things, as you've already alluded to, that are out there already and that are being used for harm. At least this is technology that's kept private, that's doing good. I mean, that's something I can sleep on.
I mean, imagine that so also it doesn't require to power up. It's activated as soon as you open it out of the box. So, for me, natural technologies are the most powerful technologies on Earth, including our physical body. There's not a better technology ever made than our own physical hardware.
That's right.
And so when I look at technologies, again, I go, is this made out of matrix? Is this going to connect us more into, the power supplies and beyond? Or is this made out of, love? And is this made out of, natural state of being? And so it works with the Earth's frequencies to be able to stay in that frequency.
So cool. And thank you, by the way, for letting me use this. Like, it's been here for, I think, almost 3 months now. And what I can say is that I get a lot of devices, and there's lots of things in my field, lots of people that do things to just make money. I don't get that from you, which is really refreshing, And so thank you so much. You've been generous to our audience as well. You guys can go to joshtrent.com/QI
and use the code Josh to get 20% off,
which I know getting the patent and getting the info and the shipping, it's not cheap. So really appreciate your generosity, man. I mean, that giving itself, it begs reciprocity. It begs like, hey, if we're going to do something together, let me show you my abundance. Let me show you my generosity so that then that reciprocates to the world. I mean, that's essentially what codes and discounts are. It's somebody saying, I'm willing to give you more so that we all can give each other more. I think that's what people forget about discounts. So thank you for that. It's linked right here in the podcast. And by the way, like this, I wanted to save this till the end because this is the crown. We have a crown chakra. Like if we are tuned off and we are not tuned into ourselves, then really we're more malleable, we're more controllable. And this is just one thing. Obviously in the pentagon, there's the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial. Like we get to nourish and give love to all those things. But man, we live in a world that our ancestors did not. Like we're not sitting in caves. We're not in the forest anymore. We're not sunbathing. We're not breatharians. Well, maybe you are. So thank you, man, for being a stand for this technology. There's so many freaking products out there for EMF. You guys definitely take a solid look at this. Engage in the discount. This is something for your home. You can travel with it. It's amazing. Put it next to your food if you're making a smoothie, right? There's tons of stuff out there. So just thank you, man, for your generosity and for taking care of us. And, if this is something that you're curious about, is there a policy where they get to try it for a while or how does that work?
So there's 30 days to try. And also, so one thing I would highly advise, so on our page, there's over 25 independent studies proving that it actually works. So if you compare it to, by the way, any other EMF harmonization device, there's maybe 2 or 3 studies and all the studies are maybe made on the material inside of it. This is an actual 25 studies done on this thing that it actually works. And so that to me was also really important because how do you know if you are not sensitive and you don't fully feel this, then ideally you track it with sleep or Aura Ring. You can see your heart rate variability increasing and your deep sleep will be longer. That's another great way. And we send people so in the 30 days, because 30 days to me is like that transformation, right? It's like the time to really work with it. You can, we send you how to place it properly. If it's too intense at first, how to put it further. If you don't feel it, how to put it closer, as well as how to measure it so you understand for you how this works. So there's no risk to it because how much we believe in this.
I get to get one of those huge ones, the dinner plate one.
Yes.
How big is it? It's huge. It's on the screen right now. The picture.
Yeah, it's about
So that'll do a whole home.
That will do a 3 to 4 bedroom home. And then we have even bigger one that will do, 328 feet diameter. That will do a massive home or
That's
farm.
That's amazing.
Or we have a lot of people with horses and they actually use it for barns because of their horses perform better.
Oh my gosh. Well, look, we're all here. We're all learning. We're all doing our best. Thank you for giving us all the tools you gave to us today, man. It's been such a great podcast. I've been lit up a whole bunch of times in this conversation. And as parting guidance, it's the signature question that I love that I've been asking myself for, ever since I was probably 5 years old. How do we live our life well? What is wellness? What is this kind of fleeting at times thing that I've been wanting to grasp at, which now I know with my work and all the interviews I've done and being a father and just where I'm at, it's not something that I grasp for anymore. It's something that I unlock that's already in there. And I didn't get that for a long time. And now I truly understand it. But I'm curious as we say goodbye, how would you define wellness for you? What does that mean to live your life well? What is wellness defined for your existence?
I call it the triple H effect. And it's the happiness, health, harmony. And so it's living a happy life through all of the work that you've done. Because like I was saying before, at the end of pain, there is love. and there is happiness, and there is this beautiful sparkle that you wake up into this world. And then there is health. And when I say health, it's on all levels, because true abundance to me means that you're living a healthy life with the ones you love and inspire others to do the same. And harmony, part of my manifestation blueprint is divine order, which ironically means to always seek a balance, always seek harmony. And it's ironic how Noah Aeon, came about as like the way of showing it to me and others. And so harmony comes through a signature DNA mixture of the choices, the thoughts, the people, that may we be that you have. And so that to me, it's more conceptualized because of the path I've taken, but I've taught thousands of people around the world that have had a very similar effect. And so I hope that same for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, man. This marinated for a while, this conversation. And like you said, before we sat down, you wanted to integrate more. And my wish for all of us from this amazing conversation, maybe this is the second time you're watching all the way through, is that we just use this as a starting place to accept wherever we are is perfect. And to accept wherever we are, there's no judgment about where we are, because we're there. And we're supposed to be there, otherwise we wouldn't be there. So we're here. And so just let that wash over your nervous system as we say goodbye. Pavel, thank you so much, man. The link right below is for the QI device, so you can live your life more well. That's essentially what we're doing here, is figuring out, how do we make sense of all this stuff? Life can be so complex and so many things whirling all the time. I think, like you said, the truth is simple. It doesn't always mean that it's easy, but the truth is simple. So from my heart to yours, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. From Pavel and from myself, if you are joining us for the 50th time or the first time, my wish is that you leave this podcast feeling more whole, more complete than when you showed up. So until we see you again real soon, I'm wishing you love and wellness.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you love this video, hit subscribe. That way you'll be automatically notified when new videos come out, new episodes, and also share this video with a friend. If you loved it, they're gonna love it too. Check out some of the videos on this screen that are perfectly curated based on the video you just saw. Make sure you follow me, and I'll see you in the next video.